We live with signs and symbols every day of our life. This past Tuesday, as a nation, we celebrated Independence Day. It's obvious what some of those signs and symbols were to reflect the day. People dressed in red, white, and blue attire, parades, hot dog eating contests, and fireworks, just to name a few. Signs and symbols. Last Saturday, right here in the church, 5 Boy Scouts gathered to begin an 8-month journey to earn their Adaltari Day religious emblem. Adaltari Day, or to the altar of God, is a deep dive through the sacraments. Upon completion, they will receive an emblem from Bishop Mike that is a bronze cross suspended under a bar and ribbon of papal colors. The emblem itself is a symbol of completion, a sign of the Scouts' desire to grow stronger in their faith and to become sacramental to each other. And get this, the first chapter we broke open was, coincidentally, about all those visible and invisible signs, symbols, and sacramentals of our faith. Signs and symbols. People can be signs and symbols to others in various ways. Nonverbal communication, such as body language, facial expressions, and gestures can convey emotions and social signals. Sometimes our own personal quirks, burdens, and challenges become signs and symbols. Consider, for example, one of my previous Cincinnati Scouts. This is a true story. His name is John, and this is the story of the yoke of the mile swim. For many years, John desired to earn his mile swim emblem. The burden, the yoke he carried is he's not a natural swimmer. His confidence level to master his swim was always lacking. And his 2 older sisters, in a very loving way, would poke fun at kind of how he swam. The last few years, I promised John I would come to summer camp and swim it with him. I'm a pretty good swimmer. Almost a year ago to this day, John and I got into the lake at Scout Camp in Cincinnati, and together as the sun rose, we took on the challenge to conquer the yoke of the mile swim. With the safety boat in tow, we were fixed hip by hip, breath by breath, stroke by stroke, sidekick by sidekick. I knew his voice, his breathing, his fear, and his anxiety. He knew my voice, my coaching, and my pacing. And then about an hour later, wet, tired, and hungry, that burden, his yoke, was lifted, and together we raised our arms high on shore as he earned the mile swim emblem. This is where we meet Jesus in today's gospel story. He says for those that can't swim a mile in the open, turbulent sea of life, with wicked wind, waves, and water tossed like a washing machine, he offers us his great invitation to carry that challenge, that burden, and that yoke for us. Yet, to understand today's story, we must examine its relation to the passage and the preceding passage that was not part of today's reading. The theme of the previous or the preceding passage is Israel's non-acceptance of its Messiah. Jesus did most of his miracles in the 3 towns of Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum. All were in the northern district of Galilee. Jesus condemned those villages and the people because they did not repent or listen. God has revealed to them through Jesus in his teachings and works. He was a tangible person and the manifestation of God that just required a mustard seed of faith. Yet for the people of the day, they carried the burden of the Mosaic law. The Pharisees laid the yoke of 613 commands. Did you know that a Jew was not allowed to whisk off a fly that landed at the end of his nose or bald head during the Sabbath. He had to wait until the fly finished its affairs, whatever they were, and fly off. Jesus said, throw away that burden. It's no good, for his way is the new law. We often carry so many unnecessary burdens. We think we should drive a big fancy car and wear an expensive oversized watch as a symbol of our social status, when the Ukrainians carry everyday burdens of food, water, and shelter. At times, we even carry burdens of self-centeredness, prejudice, greed for power, and every kind of behavior that's contrary to community and charity. Accumulated possessions, prestigious positions, and self-reliance become burdens and are signs and symbols of the me-first world, the world out there. Jesus tells us this is wrong. Today, Jesus' yoke is called easy and kind. A good yoke is one that the carpenter carefully shapes so that there will be minimal chafing. Jesus' yoke will be kind to our shoulders, enabling us to carry the load more easily. Jesus taught and demonstrated a way of life, a yoke that differs markedly from the Pharisees and the elite. Now, Jesus does not diminish the weight of our accountability to God, for living God's message is rarely tame, seldom simple, often surprising, and sometimes risky. Symbolically, today in Matthew's story, this is where Jesus turns from his ministry in Galilee toward Jerusalem. As Jesus sets his sights on Jerusalem, what is the yoke that Jesus calls us to take up? Well, indeed, if we are to be signs and symbols to others, then perhaps we're called to be Eucharistic signs and symbols. We do this by taking, blessing, breaking, and giving to others with meekness and a humble heart. We listen with intentionality. We give. We give fully. We give generously. We give abundantly. We give because his yoke is easy and restful. So, do you want to be surprising and risky this week? Consider earning the mile swim emblem as a sign of your desire to grow stronger in the faith. Like John and me, breath by breath, stroke by stroke, Jesus will be the one affixed to your hip, carrying every burden and challenge you have, only if we, accept his great invitation. And guess what? No chafing.